Hey there, welcome to today's episode. It's going to be a live and edited session. Just want to make a beat using the MPC 1000. Apologies for any background noise, it's a noisy day here in my household. We've got the MPC 1000. If you've been following my channel, you'll notice it's had a couple of other upgrades. We now have blue LEDs to replace the green ones. They're a little bright in the future. I might try and find a slightly dimmer bulb. These are about 3 volt and I think the original are 1.5. Looks okay, but I might look for 1.5 versions just to kind of dull them down a little bit. But I really like the color goes with the blue face, and we've got obviously other blue LEDs. I went for replacing all of the LEDs except the 2 record buttons, which are red, the window button, which is orange, so it goes with the pads anyway. Same with the undo sequence, which is also red. I just feel like that's important. But the play button, if I press play, you'll notice that is also blue as well. So I think it looks pretty cool. The other big feature is we have a blue LCD, and this is actually a navy blue LCD. Found this through a seller on eBay in the UK. He had like a white screen version. Then there was a lighter blue that looks kind of like the ones you see on the MPC 5000 and the MPC 500s, that type of blue. And then he had this one, which was like a dark navy blue. And I was lucky because when I asked him about them originally, he said he didn't have any left, and then discovered that he did have one. So he sent this thing out. I think the dark navy blue is perfect with the dark navy blue sides that I customized on this machine. And overall, yeah, I think it's just kind of finished this thing off. Really feels complete now. The old green screen was kind of cool in a sort of retro sense, but this new LCD is just really, really nice. Anyway, let's make a beat. So we'll dive straight in, mode and load. Let's get some samples loaded up. We've got a blank project. It's about 80 BPM, I think, on a blank project, but doesn't really matter. We're just going to go through and find some sounds. I'm going to start with, say, kick drum. Let's go to kicks and go in here. Kind of like this one. I'm going to load that up and load it to the first pad and say yes. And we've got full level on. We'll move out and find some kind of hi-hat to go with this. Just do a very basic kit and then we'll dive further in. Try and switch up some of these folders, see what else we got here. Good enough, we won't be too fussy. Let's load that one up as well. And then we want to come back out and find a snare drum of some sort. So let's dial in and find a snare. That one there's pretty cool. So we'll take this one and load it up. So we got 3 basic sounds. We can go to main. Good enough to get us started. What I'm going to do here is add our kicks. Let's put in the kicks and the snares, fix velocity, and then we'll play around from there. We'll go a little quicker in the tempo today as well. Let's move over and dial this up to, say, I don't know, 84 BPM will do. We'll do record and play start. I'll just put the kicks and the snares in for now. Now, with timing correction on this, if we do shift, we can take a look at timing correction. 1/16 notes, we didn't apply any swing, but what we will do is we can dial this up a little bit. Let's put 60 on the swing. I'm just going to say fix and say do it. This will go to everything. So we've applied a little bit of swing just before we put the hi-hats in and maybe some other kick drums. But I'm going to turn full level off in order to do that. So I might start just adding a couple of other notes in here and there. Overdub. Classic boom bap sort of pattern, 84 BPM. What we can do now is just take a quick listen without the metronome playing. I seem to be missing a little hi-hat. I could record it in separate, but if we do shift and actually mode pad 15 and then do shift and view, we can just take a look here. This is our hi-hats we got selected. If I move over to bar 2, yeah, it's missing off that first step, so I'm just going to put one in there. If I want to make any velocity changes, I can just do that here inside of this step sequencer. So I am going to kind of just vary those a little bit, places, just like that. And then we'll go back, we'll close this and go back to main. Good enough. Now we're going to go to the program, which is on pad 7, so mode and pad 7, and we'll take a look at some options. First thing is I'm going to up my kick drum a little bit. And the same with the snare. Put the hi-hats down a little bit, and with the hi-hats I might filter them just ever so slightly, so we'll move over to filter, put a low pass on and dial that back a bit. Good enough, just play the background with this thing. We're now going to use resampling. I want to just bounce that down to one drum loop. So we'll go to mode and over to record where we can set this up. So we'll change our input source to the main outputs. In terms of the threshold, it doesn't matter too much, but we'll make sure that it only triggers at a certain point. And then with this, I think we'll keep the drum stereo. We'll just record a nice stereo sample. When we do record, it's going to wait. We can just press play. Get enough. I'm not sure how many bars I want for now, but that will do. And then we can stop that. And we're going to keep the recording. I could rename it, but we'll just jump straight over to trimming mode. We should be able to see it here. This is our sample. Now, one thing with the waveform here is that the snare seems a little bit quiet when we're looking at it in comparison to the kick drums. I'm trying not to play my studio monitors too loud just because I live above somebody at home today. But what we'll do, I'm actually going to discard that. So what we'll do, we'll come out of here. We don't need to delete it entirely, but I just want to make some adjustments. So I'm going to go back to the program, over to the sample, and I'm going to beef the snare up to 100 and take the kick drum down a little bit. Maybe like that, and then we'll try doing the same thing, mode and record, and just quickly jump straight in. Something like that will do. We don't need too much of the sample. Let's quickly go back to mode and trim and take a look at that one. Yeah, just balances things out a little bit. While we're here, let's normalize this. So we'll go to normalize, which should be here somewhere. There we are. And I'm going to normalize actually ever so slightly beyond 100%. So it's going to go above 0 dB. It will act as like a little bit of a clipper. And as long as we don't go too much, if we do say like 110, 120%, should be okay. Say do it. You'll notice it's trimmed some of the tops of those transients, but generally the sound should be okay. And I just want to dial in to get my loop. So I think the loop is over here somewhere. We're going to move to the end point and just do this. If you hold down tap tempo, we can move a little bit quicker. And I think it's in towards this kick drum. So what we'll do is we'll zoom in and just dial in. I think the loop is here. We can test it in a second. So let's say about here. In terms of our endpoint, in terms of the start, there is a little bit of dead space I noticed. So I'm just going to get rid of that dead space as well to roughly about there. I'm going to turn zooming on, or looping on even. Yeah, just make sure it is a loop. And then we can say edit and we can discard, get rid of that information. So now we've got our drum loop. We can put that into the program that we had before. We'll move over here. I'm going to do Shift and All so that I can select all of the samples and just delete them out. And then if we do Shift and All just to turn that off, on pad 1, I'm going to search for sample 2, which is the name of the drum loop that we just created. We could have named it to be organized, but sample 2 will do us. So that is now loaded up. If we go to main, we still have all the MIDI information though. So I'm going to do erase and say do it. It's going to clear everything out. And now all I need to do is put this loop back in. Oops. For some reason, my BPM's changed. I'm not sure how that happened. Didn't mean to do that. It might have been before when I pressed the tap tempo button to scroll through when I was doing my trimming. You can use, I think it's the Shift button, does exactly the same thing. So I probably should have used Shift. Obviously, I've messed about with that now. Let's put it back to 84 because I think that's what we had. And we'll try that again. Actually, because the MIDI information's there and it's a one shot, it might be fine. Mode and program. I just want to check here with the couple of things. The first one is that we want the level at 100%. And then where we've got our amplitude, I want to just make sure that the voice for this is monophonic so that the sample can't keep overlapping itself and building up. Good enough. So we got some boom bap style drums. I brought the level down. I'm going to bring it down a little bit more because one thing we should be mindful of is leaving a little bit of headroom for building the beat out. Now, we've got a sample. We'll go to main. This is part of my template where I have a drums program and a drums track. It's already named and labeled. And if I move to the second track, I've got one here for chop. So I just want to make sure I'm on that track before I start finding a sample to chop up. Then we're going to go to mode and load. And we're going to find a sample to chop. So I'm going to move out of here. What do we have? So this BB chops is a bunch of stuff from the Beat Butcher kits. It's all put down into one folder. These older samplers only like 16-bit files, so a bunch of this I'll have to have converted the files, and I just stuck a bunch of the chops that I liked into a folder, or multiple folders probably, as you can see here. So let's just pick one at random. Let's go into 6 and see what we got. It's pretty cool. That's kind of cool. This one, it's called Spooky 4. I'm going to say do it, but I'm not going to load it to a pad. I'm going to say no. I'm just going to load it into the sample pool so that if we go to mode and trim, this thing will be here. Needs a little bit of volume. I can see it's a quiet-ish sample. Just need to be mindful here that we don't do 120%. We just want to normalize to 100% and say okay. And then we can get in and start chopping this thing up. So what we'll do is we'll move over to chop, turn it on, and then just dial in. If we do, say, slices, we can dial this into wherever we want. It's a perfect loop. I'm assuming it's a perfect loop anyway. So if we do shift, so you'll notice here, this is the same as using tap tempo. If I hold down tap tempo, it's going to move in big chunks like this, or whole numbers is what I mean. And if I do shift, it does exactly the same. If I don't do that, it moves by a point value and allows you to kind of dial in a little bit further. But for this, let's do whole numbers and let's try 8 chops across this. Yeah, it's going to be good enough. Need to tidy up a little bit though, so we'll say do it. And I'll jump down here to my start and end points where we can start dialing things in. Just going to zoom right in here. It's a little bit of dead space at the beginning of this one. And if I need to, just to make sure I can see the transient, I might zoom back a little bit. It's going to be good enough. Doesn't have to be perfect, just needs something. It's okay. We'll say a new program. Now, program 02, that's okay. We'll leave it like that. I could call it chops. In fact, let's do that just to be organized so that it doesn't get too confusing. And I just keep my finger on this button over here so that I can scroll through and say chops. And then I'm going to delete everything else out for a second, give myself a little bit of a space, and then we'll call this prog, I think, just like that. Just so that it's slightly different from the track name. Enter, do it. And when we're back on main, we now have chops with chops program, so we can differentiate between the two. We need to go into the program and set a couple of things, shift and all. And that way I can dial in the volume, for example. So let's put it up to, yeah, let's do 90 for now. We can always change that. And if I jump with shift and jump to the top, I can just go over here, set this to mono, so everything's in a choke group. Said it before and I'll say it again. There are different choke groups if you go over here, or mute groups, mute, choke groups, same thing. Over here, if you move to mute, if you need to separate inside of a set of pads, 16 pads, a bank, you can set individual mute groups. But if you just do this one at the top between monophonic or polyphonic, it's for the entire program. It's just a very quick way if you don't need those extra mute groups, but they are there if you need them. So let's do that. You can hear those samples don't overlap now. And then what we can do here is shift and all, and maybe just try pitching these down a touch. Oops, what have we changed there? Didn't mean to do that. We need to do shift and all, and then move to tuning. Yeah, okay, 3 semitones for now. I want to send them to an effect as well. So with mode and pad 12, we can turn on effects 1 and set this to something. There aren't a ton of effects on these older MPCs. It's one thing where they lack a little bit, but there's some stuff. There's a delay. Can play around with this. I would sync it to the tempo. Probably less feedback, and level, maybe bring that down a bit as well. Then if we go back to the program, we're going to send that program to that effect. So here where we've got our out and effects, we can do it on a per pad basis, but we want to do it as a track because we want all of these sample chops to go out. So on track 2, I'm going to turn on my effects 1, and there's a send amount for how much you want to go through. So for now, we'll just dial it all the way up. Dial it back, actually, it's getting a bit loud. But you can hear that delay effect in the background. If we want to dial that in, let's go to mode and pad 12, and we can play around with a couple of things here. Currently, it's in mono. You could put it into stereo so you get kind of more of a stereo field, but I think it's okay. I just want to play around with some of these other features. So let's turn the level down a bit. Yeah, that's okay. I'm back with the program. I'm going to go back to sample, shift and all, and just dial these chops down a bit in terms of volume. We'll play the drums now so we can just balance it a little bit. It's going to be okay for now. So we've got the sample chops, it's all chopped up. We've got a little bit of delay going through there just to kind of add some little tails in. I just like delay on sample chops. I'm just going to play with the pitch now. That's kind of the timing that I want. See if we can remember that. Let's go to main and record. And of course, I've completely forgotten instantly, so we'll undo that sequence. Yeah, that sort of ish. yeah, it's okay. Don't mind that. So we've now got some chops. We need to embellish this. Maybe we add another sequence, or do we just build this one first? I think what we'll do is we'll continue building on this one, and then maybe we'll do like a bit of a switch up. We can do a couple of different mixer views if we do mode, and we've got a mixer here. This one, I believe, is a pad level, and then if you do mode and the one down here, this is a track level. So just for balancing things again, you want to make your drums a little bit quieter, louder, same with the sample chops. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's go back to main where we can add in a new track. Now the way that we can do that is just do track 3, and we're over to track 3. And then we can set a couple of things. Now currently we don't have a program, so we want to add a new program. You can do that by going here and saying new and creating one. So we could just say new. Got a couple of things that we could do. We could create a drum track or an instrument track. I'm going to go with drum in this case. And it names whatever you were messing about with last. So it's called the chops program 2, which we don't want. So what we can do is we can press the window button and just go down here. I should have done that before we kind of loaded it up, but it's okay. If I just move over to where it says chops program and start moving it, we can call this something else. I'm going to call this bass because I think, is that what we're going to do? Bassline next? No, let's call this texture or something like that, because that's what I'm going to put in here. So T-E, X, T, U, R, and E. I might put some effects and things as well in this program, but texture is a good enough name for now, so I know what it's going to be. And then we can close that out, and we've got it here. We want to load something to there, so mode and load. And that's what I'm looking for, to try and start building some layers, little bits of noise, texture, whatever it happens to be. Let's see what we've got. We've got some transition effects. Let's go into transitions for a second and see what's here. I kind of like that one. I'm going to load it. What I'll do is probably load a few samples and then we can pick and choose. Let's load that one to pad 1 inside of this new program. And then let's see what else we got. That's not a bad sounding sample as well, so do it. If it's a longer sample, you'll notice there is a little bit of loading time. One thing about these older samplers, and it's a thing that pops up with the new MPCs quite often, is complaints about the fact that the newer MPCs, roughly, except for the XSE, all have 2 gigabytes of RAM. This thing has 128 megabytes of RAM, and as you can see, yes, there is a little bit of loading time for longer samples, but generally, sample chopping, all of that stuff, with 128 megabytes of RAM, essentially, this thing has as its memory, it does okay. So don't worry too much about your 2 gigabyte limit. I think you're doing all right. Let's go here and say, yes, we want to load that one up. What else can we find? Let's see. And I kind of like that one as well. Just interesting background noises. Pad 3, yes. I want a little bit of vinyl texture, so I'm going to go and find some of that. If we move out for a second, see down the bottom, textures. Actually, maybe in the textures folder now. Yeah, we got some in here. Little vinyl noise. Did I just see one that said vinyl noise there somewhere? This one. Yeah, good enough. That's it. Say do it. See, this is a long sample, so yeah, it takes a second to load it up, but not that long. And then we'll put it to pad 4, and that's good. So we've got a bunch of noises here. Maybe a little vocal thing or something to play around with. Now, I haven't got anything set up for sampling in directly today. I just wanted to get the machine out and just play around with it. So we'll choose something that we've got in here. Hopefully there is something. That's the only problem. I knew there was an SD card that I didn't have any vocal samples on. I don't have any way of setting it up. That's okay. We'll do without it for today. Don't think we've got anything else. Let's see what's in ALK sound bites. I don't know if there's any vocal stuff in here. Not sure. think most of it's kind of melodic. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Rather than getting bogged down with that, let's just go back to main and play around with what we've got here. So the first thing, some vinyl static. Got it on this pad. We'll stop everything. We'll go to the program. We're going to go to amplitude, where we can change this and make sure that it's monophonic, because as this being a loop comes around, this vinyl static loop, I don't want it building up and building up. So it needs to be in mono. Then just quickly on main, we can record that in. Only got 2 bars so far. And as simple as that, we've loaded up that vinyl static noise. What we can do next, yeah, something I kind of like about that sample. Let's just see how that fits. I think that's going to be good just at the beginning of the bar. One thing, I nearly overdubbed. Well, I didn't overdub. I went back to kind of go over the top, because you've got to press overdub when you're coming back to re-record. It's just something that I forget all the time. Let's do overdub. Yeah, I like that. It's kind of unusual. It's obviously got a delay in the sample, but I don't really care that the delay doesn't fit with the track. I kind of like the fact that it's all kind of over the place. If we go to mode and program, just take a quick look at it here. You can see that is a stereo sample and it's transitioned like this. Let's take that down a little bit in terms of its volume. All right, now when we're here, we've got 2 bars on the main page, as we know. I want to add in a couple more of these like longer effects, but on 2 bars it gets a bit repetitive. Everything else I don't mind, but let's extend that. So we'll do mode and sequence edit, go to bars and tell it what we want. So from the first bar to the last bar, so bar 2, and then we want to make a copy after bar 2, and we want 1 copy. That should give us 4 bars. As you can see at the top, we're now 4 bars in, and I'm just going to load that sample in there as well, but overdub this time. So that only comes around once every 4 bars. In terms of its pitch, I'm wondering whether we pitch it down a little bit. Yeah, 10 semitones is good, and it's a little loud, so let's take the volume down. And then in our 4 bars, if we go back to main, at the beginning of probably the 3rd bar, and so the second half of this loop, I'll probably put this one in. Just have that play for a little while. Mode and program, where we can take the volume of that sample down as well, because it's a little loud as it comes around. Yeah, I like that. So that's going to be the first sequence. What we're going to do here is jump up to the top, and we're going to make a copy of that sequence. So we're going to say copy, move it down, it's going to call it sequence 2, and now we've got a copy of that. The reason for that being is that we're going to start building things up a little bit. Now actually, maybe we need a 3rd copy. On this 2nd copy of the sequence, it's exactly the same. I'm going to go to track mute, And I'm going to mute out the drums, which is with this pad here. So when I go to sequence 1, because those mutes are per sequence, so we can just mute out the drums for the first sequence. That's kind of like the intro. Then you move into sequence 2. The order will be a little bit strange, but you can change that in song mode, or we could just move the order here. If you take a look inside of this window, you'll notice I can move things around. I can move the order and play with things however you kind of want them. I'm not going to worry about that for now, but just be aware that you could move it. So what I'm going to do, I am going to take another copy of sequence 1. So we're going to copy this one. It's going to be called sequence 3. And if we go here where we've got sequence 3, now we do need to do some renaming because you can see everything gets a little bit confusing otherwise. But 03 is sequence 3. This is where I want to introduce a bass line. So we're going to add another track on this sequence. If we move down, well, we can just add a track here. Then we can choose the type by going to the program. And this time I'm going to say new, and I want to do an instrument. But I want to call it bass first, because otherwise things will get messy. So let's just change that to bass, and we'll move 1 and back, bass, delete everything else out, and just click enter. And yeah, I think that should be good to go. So we're going to do instruments. We've got an instrument track called bass. Now, when we load up our bass sample, we can mess around with it. So we need to find a sample, mode and load, and come out of here. Let's go over to my bass folder. Just find a simple bass note. Oops, let's say no. Didn't mean to actually load that one up. Maybe that one's okay though. Yeah, actually, I kind of like just that simple bass note. Let's just leave it like that. What we'll do here, if we go to the program, we can load the sample in. So on pad 1, we need to find that sample. Because we just accidentally loaded it to the pool, it will be in here. It's probably back there somewhere, isn't it? Bass 1. There we are. Now, if we come up our octaves, that's how we can play around with that. And a couple of things. So amplitude, I want to play around up here on the top. I'm going to set this program to monophonic. It's a bass line. I don't want the sample overlapping. And down at the bottom, I want to set the release long. We'll have to come down the octaves again, but I just want to get it set up like that. And for now, that's kind of okay. I think we'll leave it like that. Let's go to main. And I think that will probably work. Three kind of notes, boom, 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 and then, yeah, we go from there. So let's record that. Now, I forgot that we had 4 bars, so we can make a repetition of that as it comes around. Just so that I'm kind of more in the flow with it, I'm going to erase that sequence and just do it again. I took a chance on putting an extra note in there, but I actually don't like that note. One way that you can erase is if you move over. Obviously, we can move over here. If you hold down erase, you can just erase the note out. I think it was this pad. So let's just hold down erase and play. Sorry, it needs to be while this is playing around. Just looking for that MIDI in the end of the 4th bar. And I think it was this pad here. Do you have to have record on? That's my bad. Let's do overdub. Get rid of that extra note. So now we've got a bass line added to that track, and that kind of adds a decent bit of life into it. Yeah, don't mind that. This is track 4 where we've got our bass. If I go to mode and my mixer down here, I'll probably just take the bass down a little bit. And to kind of finish off in terms of this first sequence, I think what I want is something to kind of replicate maybe the bass line. Now, we could just come in and put something on a higher level, or we could just use the same bass note, record that at a slightly higher octave. But I think what I want is to find another different sample. So I'm going to move down here, we're going to add a new track, and then onto this track we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add new, and we'll call this, I don't know what to call it because I don't know what the sample is going to be yet, but let's call it, we'll go with melody. So what am I looking for? Melody, like that. That will do. Instrument track, and we'll do the same thing, mode and load. Try and find something that's going to work. So if we move out of my bass folder, and then I've got a bunch of notes. So they're just random notes that are in folders. Let's see what we got here. Now that might be cool. It's kind of like a little guitar pluck kind of sitting on the top of the bass line, kind of the same notes maybe. Let's say do it, and we're going to load that to pad 1. This is bank 1. We need to be on bank A and say yes. And then we can go to main. I don't know if these samples are tuned to C, which would play more correctly, as the term I'm looking for, but it doesn't matter. We'll just do it by ear, and hopefully we can work that out. Go into the program. With this one, I don't mind if it overlaps a little bit, I think. I think we'll leave it like that, but I do want to change the release so that it's kind of playing more of the sample. Something like that. Let's have a quick look. Now that's not quite following the bassline pattern. I don't think it really matters, but also, again, I forgot we got 4 bars, so I've kind of stopped playing short. We'll just try it again. Let me just see what the bassline pattern is. I can't remember. So it's... Let's see if we can put that in. It's okay. What we'll do, mode and program, let's go to this. So we know, actually, no we don't, we're track 5. Let's go back to mode and program. So here, track 5, I want to send the effect to FX1, which is still set to a delay, and just dial that in and see what it sounds like with a little delay on those. good enough. Adds a little bit of depth to the bass line. It's just a little twang noise. Now, I think I just want one more little melodic noise to fill out that sequence. I don't think you have to fill every little gap, because if you've got a vocalist, somebody on top of this with their vocals, it's good to have space anyway. But with this, it feels like there's just this little moment where one little ping, a little noise could come in and it would sound kind of cool. So let's do that. Let's go to mode or main. Let's add another track here. And in terms of the program, we're going to do a new program. I don't know what to call this. Let's call it, I'm going to call it twang, and see what little noise we can find to go in there. So like the twang of a guitar. And let's just do it like that. Enter. This one I'm going to just do as drums. We'll just do it as like a drum track instrument, because I don't really want it to pitch it up and down particularly. I just want it to be one little note that kind of comes in. We're going to go to mode and load, where we can try and find something. And I'm hoping in this notes folder there'll be something that I think works. Maybe that might do us. Let's try that one. If it doesn't work, we can replace it with something else. Make sure we're on bank A over here and say yes. And go back to main. So just at the end where the bass line ducks for a second. And I don't want it every single bar, I just want it every once in a while. Might play with the pitch and see what happens, but for now, let's just get it recorded in. Now the pitch works where it is. It might be a little loud, but we could try different pitches, because sometimes unless you try it, you just don't know. So let's let it loop around. I'm going to take the volume down a touch. Actually, 4 semitones just feels kind of right. So, in terms of making a beat, that's pretty good. I think it's quite simple. Obviously, if you wanted to arrange it and add some more details here and there, you could do other things with it. But it's not too bad. What we would use is probably a switch up. So let's see if we can quickly put a switch up in to end the video, because we've got one sequence that is like the intro. You've got one where things are building up, and then another thing where the bass line comes in and maybe that little extra pluck noise or something. It's just the track can be moving in a certain direction. Let's add another sequence. I'm going to make a copy of the original sequence 1 before we added the bass and a bunch of other things, because if we copy this one over, it's easier to just take out the chops and put something else in. So let's do a copy of sequence 1, and we do that by choosing it and saying copy. This time it's going to be called sequence 4. So this is the kind of the second part. You've got the intro, and then it moves into this where everything's still a little bit stripped back. If we take a look at the tracks, and if we start naming things, it'd be easier. But we've got our drums, which we want to keep. Our chops, we want to get rid of the information here for the chops. So I'm going to do erase and say do it. We've still got the effect sounds, which I think I'll leave there for now, but maybe I would strip those out as well. But for now, we'll just leave those. But we've got our drums, and we could try some different chops. Maybe something that is like an intro, just a little breakdown. we're dealing with 4 bars, and for the breakdown, that's too long. 2 bars will probably do it. Just do that. I just need to turn the loop bend back on. Kind of like just those 2 simple notes. It almost reminds me of like a French siren for a police car. Don't ask me why, but that's giving me that kind of vibe. Let's record that in. It's just something. We could put a little automation, a filter sweep or something, but for now we'll just leave it like that. What I want to do though is I want to come along to the tracks where we've got our track 3. So this is our texture, which we've already got loaded in. You'll notice that the sequences are dependent or like independent. So when I go to track 4, on our other sequence that had bass because that's how it was set up. But here it's disappeared. So if we move to the program, we can still select it. We just need to find the right one. And I did call it bass so that I wouldn't forget what it was. And now what we can do is maybe just find some bass notes that will work with the siren. Just one bass note, doesn't need to be overcomplicated. If I had had the chance to sample in or had something on my SD card kind of not very well prepared, I would have put like a little vocal, something, a little movie scene thing, something, a little vocal into the switch up, but today we're just going to leave it like that. And that's going to be it. That's going to be it for today's episode. What we'll do is we'll just kind of play out on the beat. I'll noodle around a little bit. What I'll do is I've still got my SP set up. Everything's running through the SP, but there's no effects on the SP currently. Maybe we even do that. Actually, what we could do, let's go to mode and let's go to the effects. I'm not sure what this will sound like because we're just going to turn it on, but on the 1000, if you go to master, we've got a master EQ and a master compressor. So let's just quickly move back to, say, our main sequence. Now you can hear it's pretty heavy-handed. Probably a little bright for my taste. We'll dial it back a little bit. We've got a cracking bump in low gain. And in terms of the compressor, that's a ratio of 8:1. It's pretty strong. You get the idea. It jazzes it up a bit for now, but ideally you want to leave some headroom, mix it, master it properly. But a little compression, little EQ, sounds good enough. Let's go back to main where we can dial this thing in. Now, I'll have to remember what we had on each sequence. I think number 2 is where we begin. On the SP, I'm just going to quickly match the tempo so that I can use some of the effects here with shift and tap tempo. You guys won't be able to see this because it's off screen, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just matching it into 84, just so that we can play out on the beat and I can use some of the effects that are going on in here. So I want to make sure that is my stopper effect. and everything else is set up. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you like the new look for the MPC 1000. I think the blue screen, the blue LEDs, to really finish this thing off. And as you can see, yeah, we've got kind of blue LEDs across the board, but I really like the way that it feels now. When I bought this thing, it was a green screen with a blue casing. You'll have seen the original ones, but it was burgundy, like red on the sides. There was some purple buttons here, which have been custom painted to match the side panels. It was just, yeah, too many colors going on. This still, it gives me kind of like New York Knicks sort of vibes with the orange and the blue and the white. And with the blue screen now with the white text, everything feels just about right. One thing you can do as well with these, if you go to mode and other, if you wanted to, you could reverse the LCD. Now, I prefer it this way, but if you wanted to, you can kind of have it like this. So it could be set up with this kind of like white with navy blue on the top. It's not for me personally, but some people might like that more. It's very high on the contrast. Let's just put it back to how it was. Anyway, let's, play out on the beat. See you guys in the next episode. Take care.